Howdy, folks! Happy Monday. We're in I guess this would be the dog days of summer. It hasn't been like 90 plus usual, ridiculous, humid Buffalo August, which is a little strange. And then over the weekend, the temperature dipped into the high 60s, which was nice at night to sleep in. So I can't complain about the weather for once, Russ. I just want to complain about this though. If you didn't know what you were doing in terms of going out to shop for certain items, you could really get taken to the cleaners. And I won't name the name of the store, but it's a well-known home furniture place, a national chain. I was not going in there for this, but I was looking for an Adirondack deck chair. You could buy them for plastic ones for $20, but I wanted to get a wooden one that lasts for years. So I've gone into some of the hardware places or Home Depot, and they're anywhere from $100 to $200 for a good one. I walk into this furniture place, and they have an Adirondack chair, and it looks really good. And then I look at the price tag. $500. I almost threw. I asked the person who worked there, "Is this mislabeled?" They said, "Oh no, that's how much it is." I'm like, "Okay, good luck selling that." It's unbelievable. It's Kevin. It's the same chair, the same. It's not wood, but it's like a polymer wood combo. Mm-hmm. It's the same material that you would buy at Home Depot for 5 times less.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Yeah, but they'll be able to consult their manager and say, we'll come back with you. We'll give you this for only $300, and you'll feel like you got a good deal. If you haven't priced them before. So yeah, sure. That's the way they kind of do things.
All right, so let's talk. Yesterday, I would say pretty well-known WFAN personality put out his top 15 New York athletes list. A lot of times he does overnights, but he's a well-known guy. I think he's a good guy. But this list is missing a little something. I'll go quickly from 15 to 10, and then we could start naming guys. But you can start guessing. But 15, he has Mekhi Becton. 14, he has Barzal. 13, he has R.J. Barrett from the Knicks, who I wouldn't have. 12, he has Jeff McNeil from the Mets, who I wouldn't have. And I love Jeff McNeil. 11 is DJ LeMahieu. I don't think I'd have him either.
I'd have him.
I'd have him. He won a AL batting.
Yeah, how's he doing this year, Mike?
Yeah, but he's still got some popularity.
Okay, so number 10. Who is number 10? He's a football player, I'll tell you that.
Okay, so it's definitely not Sam Darnold. This is Daniel Jones.
Nobody from Buffalo, because it's just when they talk New York,
it's got to be. Then it would be somebody good then. Daniel Jones.
No. Running back.
Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. Okay.
Number 9 is a hockey player, but it's probably not the hockey player you would think would be like in number 9.
John Tavares?
But but this guy's a great hockey player. Great hockey player.
Panarin?
Yes. The reason I say I will give a spoiler and tell you that Adam Fox is not in the list. He won a Norris, but he's not in this list.
See that's the crime here. Mekhi Becton is on the list. McNeil is on the list, and Adam Fox, who won a Norris, is not.
Which is kind of crazy.
Ridiculous.
Okay. So we go and we say next one is a basketball player on the Nets.
Oh, Durant.
Who?
Durant.
No.
Kyrie.
Come on, Mike.
Kyrie.
Yeah, Kyrie is number 8.
I'd take him off on general principle, but anyway.
The next, but it's fair. Next one is a pitcher from the Yankees.
Cole.
Yep. The next one is a New York Mets slugger, but he should be higher on this list.
Alonzo.
Yeah.
Number 5 is a sometimes Brooklyn Nets great.
Harden.
And I say sometimes because half the time he doesn't play.
Neither does Kyrie, but for other reasons.
Just for personal sake, and I think for consistency's sake, I would have Alonzo ahead of Harden. If it were me, I'm not sure where you guys fall on that, but he's a consistent 30 home run or more guy every year. which in New York is hard to find. Anyhow, with the pressure. Number 4 is a New York Knick, and I'm not sure I put him this high.
Oh, Randall.
Yeah, Julius Randle.
That's ridiculous.
He had a great year, but yeah, he had a great year, but like that's kind of rough off a great year. Number 3, you just have to guess it now.
Judge.
Aaron Judge, which is fine. I'm okay. Number 2, you just have to guess it.
Well, I know who number 1 is, so it's DeGrom. So
right.
Number 2, it's not a Giant. It's not a Jet. It's Durant. Okay, Durant.
Right. Yeah, we just.
So,
yeah, duh.
So the big thing on this, the takeaway for me on this, Kev, was it's been many, many years in the New York area that somebody thought a pitcher was the best athlete in the New York metro area. A lot of times it's a quarterback. A lot of times, at least there were a few hockey players, but they should have had Adam Fox. But I can't remember the last time that they mentioned a pitcher like that as the best, other than guys like Tom Seaver. Like it really has been many, many, many years.
Yeah, I can see that. Although DeGrom is a special case. You know what I mean? Like he's so dominant, and I see that. Even with Randall, sports is even if one good season, catapults you, with the fan base, so.
It's true. Next year, like Zach Wilson will be in that list somewhere if he does another one.
Well, I have to say.
But that doesn't explain why Adam Fox isn't on the list.
Right.
No, nothing explains that.
Yeah.
I have to say I'm stunned that Giancarlo Stanton is not on the list. Stunned.
If you want it to be fair, though,
yes.
If we really want it to be fair, I think in somewhere between 10 and 15, Varlamov should probably be in there. Because this is a guy who had a tremendous year. Yeah. The Islanders went really far, but he doesn't get any press at all in the area. He really doesn't.
Does that speak to the fact the Islanders don't get as much love as they probably deserve?
They do. I mean, they get – I think they get more love now than they have in the last 5 years. So I do think they get it, and they've got a new arena coming. So I think they're going to be present in that. Well, it's just whatever. Varlamov, he's a guy that probably should have made the list.
Well, if Eck was doing the list on number 3 behind DeGrom and Durant, definitely would have been Ilya Sorokin.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's get started.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, August 16th, 2021.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, we've got a lot of contract signings, which are always exciting and thrilling, but we're going to go through some of them. But some fairly significant ones. The one that sort of took me back, and we can talk about this one to start off, is UC Saros signing a 4-year deal with the Nashville Predators, 4-year, $20 million deal. Kev, it's the exact same deal that Linus Ullmark signed with Boston. So Linus Ullmark was the youngest and I think probably the best of the free agent goaltender class. You could debate maybe Frederik Andersen. Saros, I believe, was an RFA with arbitration rights and then was close to UFA. He's 26, so I think he would have been UFA next year. So this is a significant contract. We'll debate this. I'm sure Russ is not on board with this one, but what did you think of this contract?
Well, I just thought it was too long. Like I'm reluctant to give goalies, like 3 years to me seems like the max. I mean, obviously there's going to be some circumstances where you're going to have to do that. But, I said the same thing with Ullmark signing in Boston. Like he was the best available younger goalie, but that doesn't mean he's proven. Like, what do we really know about him? Like, I thought he played well for the Sabres last season, but we don't know whether he can carry the load, shoulder the burden, all of that. And, UC is the same way. I don't, I'm not so sure. He was pretty good last year, but, 4 years just seems like too much. And, I'm not sure $5 million. I would have given $5 million to either one of those guys.
Well, Russ, the questions regarding Ullmark were twofold. One, like Kevin said, his ability to play in pressure, because he had no pressure in Buffalo. Buffalo was at the bottom of the league, so no pressure at all. And his durability. He's been injured every year, I think the last 3 seasons. And I know that I dwell on durability, but I'm just saying, when you're signing a goaltender and you've had Tuukka Rask being dependable over the last few years, you want your goalie to be there. And if he's not there, Swayman is a rookie, and who knows what will happen. With Saros, he took over for Rene. Rene was fading, was at the last year of his career, had a really good year, played pretty well in the playoffs. But I know that you had questions about Saros over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, I think this last year was a career year for him, and I think he's getting paid off a career year. Do I think he's the 927 guy that sort of carried himself through the playoffs? No, but he did. Do I think he's the 890 guy? No, but I think he's probably like the 912, 914 guy that we've been seeing. And why am I giving him 4 years? Askarov, from what I read online, his contract runs out in 2022. You have now just given him license to go and re-up for at least 1, maybe 2 more years with Ska over in the KHL, because there's no way he's coming over when you're going to say, well, you know what, first year, go to Milwaukee. He's not going to go to Milwaukee.
Well, so, no, he's not going to go to Milwaukee.
Hold on.
Okay.
So let's say he extends for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 years, then he comes over, then if he's better than UC Saros when he comes over, which is possible because he had a 950 this year in the KHL,
mm-hmm.
And he's probably only going to come over if they say you're going to, have a chance at the job.
Right.
Do you want UC Saros as a $5 million backup? That's my thing. And at some point, he is going to be. The question will be he be the $5 million backup for 1 year or 2 years? That's the problem.
Okay. Now, we know that teams can go through a whole bunch of chicanery to get players to come over in terms of upping the bonuses, things of that nature. They could have Askarov come over at the end of this season or next season, depending on his KHL contract, and burn a year of his ELC, so he gets to RFA in 2 years instead of 3 years. I'll bet you that that will be part of it. But Russ, he's got to burn off the ELC before he has any kind of leverage to get any kind of money, or I
don't care about the money as much as the playing. And right now, that contract tells Askarov and his agent, okay, this guy's the starter, so you might as well stay over in Russia for a while.
He's the starter for now, Kevin. I think that they have confidence, but in a league where goaltending, there's a dearth of goaltending.
Yeah,
I don't think they'd have trouble getting rid of Saros if Askarov comes over.
Well, yeah, but in general, I agree with Russ. But where I disagree is, I think Askarov is one of those cocky guys who, just believes he's going to win the job, regardless. So I think he would just, when he's ready, he's going to come over, and his leverage is he's Askarov. Mm-hmm. Like the Predators want him, they want him to come over, and they don't want him staying in Russia all that time. I mean, if he's tearing it up, like if he has Sorokin-like numbers, remember how good Sorokin's numbers were. What's the fan base going to say if Saros is just average, and he's playing over there, and the Athletic and all, and the Tennessean are writing stories about how good this guy is. So, I don't think it's going to take 3 years to get him over here. I think he's going to be over here sooner. And I think
he is. Okay, then what about the situation, Kev, where he could be a $5 million backup? Because
that's their own fault, because they shouldn't be doing that. I think they'd rather have a $5 million backup than not have a premium guy like Askarov coming over as quick as possible.
And just think, Russ, they're twice as better off than Florida, because Florida's got a $10 million backup.
But here's the funny thing. Okay, so this is what I always talk about with cap mismanagement. We always look at it and say, yeah, it's 1 year too long. But Kev, if you have 3 or 4 guys on your team that are 1 year too long, and this one's for $5 million, and this one's for $4 million, and this one's for $2.5 million, eventually you get capped out.
I agree with you. And they got, Duchesne was 8 years too long. Johansson was 7 years too long. Even Ryan Ellis, who was a good player, was, he had 6 years left, and that was too much. So, of all the teams to give him a 4-year deal, I thought it was strange. But, you're also going to be dealing, I think, at some point with a new general manager. I mean, David Boyle's in his 70s. At some point, he's got to address, his how long he's going to stay. So,
Sure.
And that general manager, whoever it is probably going to have to do a refurbishing of the Predators, akin to what Guerin has done in Minnesota or Bill Zito has done in Florida. There was an exodus of players, but I don't know how you can facilitate an exodus of albatrosses like Duchesne and Johansson. Those are tough contracts to move.
Oh, impossible. And I thought Johansson, when you go look at his buyout, it isn't as onerous as you would think it would be.
Right.
Especially if you wait one more year. But Duchesne's is a mess, so, they're stuck with him forever and a day. I mean, that's almost as bad as Skinner in Buffalo, in my opinion.
Yeah. The signing, well, I'm looking at Johansson's right now. Johansson, if bought out right now, would be a $2.66 million cap hit for 8 years. So after eliminating one more year, there's no mechanism to adjust it, but I'm assuming it would only be 6 years and it'll be less of a cap hit over the year. So that's not ridiculous.
I was gonna say, Kev, Mark in the chat room said Lou Lamoriello is over 70. Are you gonna tell him he's got to step down soon because of his age?
No, Lou and David Boyle are two different personalities, two different guys.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think ownership in Long Island is different than ownership in Nashville. Oh, I may have some information here on that where I can say that at some point, he's going to. I don't think it'll be this season, but I mean, the point in the chat room is well taken. I mean, there's a lot of guys. Jim Rutherford's in his 70s and still wants to get back into it.
Yeah.
Dale Talon was in his 70s when he left the Panthers. I mean, I'd say 72 or 73 is the new 65. So I guess is what I would say.
And Matt Duchene's buyout is 10 years. The first 5, it ranges from 2.5 to 6.5. So there's really not much saving, and that's because there's heavy signing bonus over the 5 remaining years of the contract. So, yeah, that's a boat anchor. That really is a bad one.
Yeah.
The other contract from today that occurred was the settlement of Kevin Fiala on a 1-year deal. And we know this. When it comes to arbitration, as soon as the figures are released, there's 99 times out of 100 there's a settlement. And with Fiala, it was the Wild came in at 4, he came in at 6.25, and it was right down the middle, 5.1 for 1 year. And based on the fact he's had 2 consecutive 20-goal seasons, he had 40 points last year in a shortened season, and is one of the better forwards on the Wild after coming over in that deal from Nashville. This is a pretty fair compromise, Kev.
Yeah, it is. But this takes us right back to the Predators. When they had to make a choice about who they were going to keep, and they bet against Fiala, and boy, they bet wrong. Because they sure could use a guy like Fiala right now. So that was a bad decision on it. Fiala has, been the players that scouts thought he was going to be when he was first drafted, instead of the player that he was in Nashville, where he was very inconsistent and really couldn't.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. I could never put my finger on why he wasn't working out in Nashville, but he is a guy with speed and hockey IQ and everything else. This is a good signing in the sense that they got him signed. Sorry, Kev, you froze there.
Yeah, you froze.
I think this is a big win for Kevin Fiala, though, because Minnesota is going to really if they have plans for him long term and want to sign him after this year's 25 goal season, they're going to, he's going to take him to the cleaner. So this may help them for this year, but it's going to really help Fiala down the road. Yeah,
and they're dealing obviously with the buyouts starting next year. That's going to be really difficult for them. I did want to bring up, in addition to these contracts, as we've explained before, I also write for Detroit Hockey Now, and my partner in crime there is Bob Duff, and he wrote a fascinating story today that Nedeljkovic is eligible, who was a finalist this year for Rookie of the Year, is eligible again for Rookie of the Year next year.
Oh.
And he's likely going to be, carry the load. I think there'll be somewhat of a split, but I'm assuming he'll play 50 games. He'll be a 50 game rookie goalie.
Now, more than likely, his statistics in front of a sort of young, in some places, patchwork and others Detroit defense won't be as good as in front of the Carolina. But yeah,
I think that's fair. But I think the defense is going to be improved.
Yeah, because it's improved, and Bernier's numbers were pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. Grice and Bernier's numbers were good last year. Their goaltending actually was okay last year.
Let's go with the hypothetical here, Kev. So let's just say he is a finalist for the Calder. How bad does it look for the Hurricanes for not going in on him when, again, they had a chance, they waived him, and they brought him back up, he leads them into the playoffs, they then trade him for pretty much nothing because, again...
Right, I agree with you. Nothing, yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, the trip that he's gone on.
It shocked me, but, I mean, we've seen this before. I have the sense that this was not management as much as coaching decision. They just wanted to go in a different direction. They had faith in Freddie Anderson, and I don't know. I guess money was involved as well. The fear of arbitration.
All right, so let's take it a step further, Kev. Clearly, in Detroit, the coach does not run the team, and I'm not saying that Rob Brindamore runs the team, but he seems to have more input than almost any coach in the league now. And when is it dangerous? You covered Mike Babcock, who had a tremendous amount of input. When is it dangerous that the coach has too much input, like maybe even Quenneville in Florida? When does that become a deterrent?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. I don't know. I mean, Rod Brindamore and Waddell just have a great relationship. So, they talk. But I think Waddell is influenced by how Rod Brindamore, views players. And, the problem it was in Detroit is Holland would do things the way he thought they should be done, and then
Babcock adjusted to it.
Yeah, just did what he wanted to do anyway.
Right.
So it doesn't bring if you bring a guy in, it doesn't help if he doesn't play. I mean, Quenneville did that to Bowman as well in Chicago.
Yeah.
I remember Rundblad. Turns out he was right about him, but
he did that with Trevor Daley too. He did that with
Trevor Daley is another great example. They brought him in. He made the decision, he being Quenneville, that he didn't work in his system, and then he made it much harder for them to move those guys. So,
but Russ, this is the thing that I'm curious about when it comes to Carolina. There's always a case when a new general manager takes over from an old general manager that he values the guys that he brings into the organization more than the ones that he assumed from the previous administration. But they've taken it to and I'm just going to go through this quickly here. Hayden Fleury, first round pick, 7th overall, gone. Nedeljkovic, 2nd round pick, gone. And these are players that made the NHL. Warren Fogle, 3rd round pick, gone. Sebastian Aho, they kept, 2nd round pick. Noah Hannafin, 5th overall, gone. Jake Bean, 1st round pick, 13th overall, gone. Gauthier, gone. They've Morgan. I think Morgan Geekie is gone. He's gone too. Yeah, he's in Seattle. But my point is, there's some normal turnover. We're talking about premium prospects and players here, and all of them have been cleared out. Now, is that the general manager? Is that the coach? Is that ownership?
I think ownership has gotten involved in this because I do think it's like a look down the road. Who do we value to pay what we feel like we want to pay and who do we don't. And the ones we don't, we're going to ask our GM now to trade them. Andrei Svechnikov is going to be the next one that comes up in this list, because if he only gets a 3-year bridge instead of that long-term deal that, that they gave him a short salary on that he vetoed, he could be the next one out. And
then he walks
where it doesn't help your team, because again, there's only so many Svechnikovs that come around in a draft. That's the thing.
And if they sign him to a 3-year deal, Kevin, then they're walking him to the doorstep of unrestricted free agency. And okay, you'll pay less in the short term, but you're going to be paying through the nose if he ends up being the player that we all think he's going to be.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think this is a referendum on what kind of team, in terms of salaries, the Hurricanes are going to be, because you can't lose or even risk Svechnikov.
Right.
He's too valuable. So, if they won't pay him now, and I don't know why they wouldn't, he's already fully established as a dominant force, then you're going to have trouble.
Yeah, and you have to remember that the Sebastian Aho contract was not signed by Don Waddell or Thomas Dundon. It was signed by Mark Bergevin, and they just matched it.
Well, let me ask you this, Kev. At what point do we think Svechnikov's going to be a holdout if he doesn't get this RFA deal signed? Because to me, it's gone longer than I thought it would have for a guy of his ilk.
Yeah, it's the holdouts. We just don't see them as much anymore. They usually get things done, and it's always in the player's best interest. I never really understood, unless you're trying to force a trade, but I don't think they would trade him. Right. So, I just would, if I was a player, I would just say to the general manager, well, you made your call, you're going to have to live with it. And then just come in and play for whatever you can get on the best offer. You take a 3-year deal. I mean, it's then you have all the leverage. So I think he'll just take that, and just as Mike laid out, and take them to the doorstep, and then hold the nuclear bomb over their head.
Yeah,
pay me more than I'm worth, or
sure seems like it's going that way.
The other contract, and this is in your neck of the woods, Kev, is Adam Ernie signing a 2-year deal at $2.1 million per. And I heard criticism that how the hell is Adam Ernie getting $2.1 million? Well, it's because Detroit's got a ton of cap space, but he did score 11 goals in 45 games, so that would equate out almost a 20-goal year. So that's
I still don't get it though. I mean, I projected him based on looking around at guys that were in his ilk at $1.5 million.
Right.
So they did overpay him. I don't think they paid him because they have cap space, because Yzerman guards his cap space. I don't just, they held the line against Glendening. They wouldn't pay Bernier. They played hardball with a lot of guys.
Right.
But for some reason, they value Ernie. Now, Ernie is a little bit different. They don't have a lot of guys that are hard to play against, stronger guys that are good along the boards, and he's pretty versatile. He can slide up and down. He can play on the second line, the third line. So there is value to him, and they certainly wanted him. And I think even those who think he was overpaid want him on the team. It's just people were surprised that he got $2 million per season.
I think what Yzerman's doing, like, I'll give you in my fantasy pool, like I had drafted Ernie at the beginning. I was a big Adam Ernie guy, but he certainly was going the route of a lot of other power forwards where it takes a while to really find your footing. And even 2 years ago, we were hearing rumblings like Adam Ernie's not good enough, but it is starting to take effect. And he is a really strong kid. He has a great wrist shot. He does play around the net. So I look at him and I say, okay, what would you rather do? Would you rather have Adam Ernie? Or would you rather go out in the scrap heap of what's out there and sign, I don't know, a 33, 34-year-old guy for 1.5 because it makes you happy because it's not over 2? I'd still go with the 26-year-old that maybe could show me a little bit more, since he maybe is a little bit of a late bloomer here.
Yeah, I can't argue that logic. I just thought that just based on comparables, he wouldn't have gotten $2 million, but
yeah,
they gave it to him.
Maybe it's a reward too, Kev. Like, he has been there on not a great team, and he hasn't let it affect his game at all for a young player.
Yeah, he's improved. There's no doubt. Yeah.
And the other contracts, some notable names, Russ, some first-round picks, Sebastian Cossa, William Eklund, Mason McTavish all signed their ELCs. We have to make sure that people know this doesn't mean that these teams think that these players are going to play this year.
Right.
For example, Eklund's going to go back to Sweden and play. Cossa to the OHL, McTavish. And the contracts slide a year, so the teams are going to get the full 3 years out of their contracts. It doesn't mean that right now they think they're this close to making the NHL. So I don't even think that obviously Owen Power's not going to play in the NHL until maybe the end of the year after Michigan potentially wins a national championship. But I don't know how many first rounders this year are going to make it.
Not too many, but I think they'll be on the back end. I think if Power does go on the back end, then I think Berniers will go too. If they both decide to stay one more year, then I think they both would stay one more year. But I don't think that's going to happen. So I think both of those guys could go. I think Johnson may end up staying one more because he has to get physically stronger. Mm-hmm. But I look at Eklund and say, if he has a big year, he could come into the league. Like, he is very, very close. And for a team like the Sharks and a fan base that probably needs a little boost, he could really give it to him. Guys like Brendan Hoffman, it's just like, hey, you're our top prospect, pat on the back. Well, he's not even their top prospect, but one of them. Pat on the back, go back to the OHL and keep proving yourself. Kossa's years away because he's a goalie. Yeah, these things are just more of a function to most of the time to pump up the player. The players, and look, we have to be real now too, Kev. Everybody's got a video or a picture showing them signing their first contract, and it's on social media, and it's good press right when you're trying to sell season tickets too.
Yeah, and they've, from what I've been hearing, they've been having a hard time in some cities selling these season tickets just because people just don't quite know what's going to happen with COVID or, so forth. So.
Okay, I wanted to bring this up because I was listening to some, baseball over the weekend, and I obviously you can tell I'm a Yankees fan, and I'm listening to John Sterling and Susan Waldman as I'm doing some work outside of the house, and Sterling is in his 80s, but he's still fairly sharp. He's got some problems with his eyes, which apparently affect his play-by-play when he's watching on TV, which is what he's doing. He's sitting in the press box or sitting in the booth at Yankee Stadium watching the game on a monitor. And Kev, for more than a few times during the game, he's losing track of the ball. He's not following the outfielder like he would follow it if it was like the game was at the stadium. There's definitely a difference in the play-by-play when he's live at a game, which he was used to for 162 games a year for however how many years he's been broadcasting with the Yankees, and it really affected it. It was really like he at some points didn't realize that strike 3 had been called until the batter was walking back to the bench. Now this is the extreme, but we know where sports are going post-COVID. And what I'm concerned with, and we talked about this a couple shows ago, about maybe there wouldn't even be radio broadcasts and it'd be simulcast, but it's still going to affect it if they're simulcasting and it's a road game, say Buffalo versus San Jose, and all Dan Dunleavy or Rick Jenneret are sitting in the KeyBank Center broadcast booth and watching the game on TV and losing track of the puck. It's really going to affect the quality of the broadcast if the trend that we think is going to happen is followed.
Well, I agree. I mean, it can't not affect it just because, we've all watched games on television, and sometimes the camera loses the puck, and you just don't have any idea. I noticed they're developing now new skills, the ability to delay a call and not make it feel like it's a delayed call.
Right.
Yeah. Where, they're still sort of kind of talking as if it's all part of it, and I'm leading you to this call. And then finally they get back to where they see what's going on, and then they make the call. It's a real art. we now in baseball have the longest home run calls because they give you it's deep, it's long, the outfielder's moving back,
right?
It's out of here, where before they.
Well, Kev,
so.
on the weekend, Sterling's it is high, it is far, it is gone, or she's gone. He did it is high, 3-second pause. It is far, another 3-second pause. It is caught.
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of those. Yeah,
I mean,
it's a deep fly ball. He's got it.
Yeah. I'll tell you the things that I feel like the fans are losing on here. So I've heard more than a few broadcasts, a few hockey, more baseball, where they'll let you know 2 or 3 times that they are not at the away game. Like they are letting you know this to almost say, hey, if we foul something up, we're just letting you know we're watching it the same as you are, and we're trying to call this for you. That's one thing. I've heard this more with baseball now because baseball generally travels even closer with the team than any other sport we haven't talked to the players in 2 years. And I want to tell you, you are losing something with this disconnect from the players and the booth because – yes, once in a while they'll interview guys while they're in the dugout and everything, but it's the off times, like Kevin would always say at the practices and all these other things, where you pick up a lot of these little tidbits, especially for the radio and TV folks. I used to see them all the time doing these interviews, just talking to the guys. And when you don't have that, it does sort of leave a hollow feeling for the fan at home because honestly, you get a new pitcher this year, name your pitcher, Detroit or the Mets. They could tell you what the guy is doing, but they can't really tell you what the guy is like because they're never around him.
Right. No, and that's true. And even the beat reporters are separated by Zoom calls. So that's we've all dealt with that the last year and a half. And I mean, I'm hopeful that things are going to open up for training camp next month, but I'm not 100% sure that that's going to happen. But
the away broadcast traveling seems dead now.
Yeah, I think it's
completely on finances.
I think that's the case. That's the case, Kev. For example, I would be surprised. The Yankees are not even sending people. This is the Yankees who have their own network, who make billions of dollars. So if the Yankees are not sending people, then if you're talking hockey and you're talking the Buffalo Sabres or you're talking the New Jersey Devils, then, like I said, Dan Dunleavy's going to be sitting in the press box at KeyBank Center or Rick Jeanneret. They're going to be sitting there watching the game on big monitors.
Yeah. And it's so hard to do hockey like that. I marvel at that they can still do play-by-play, because a lot of them, really sort of learn the skating styles of people. And it's hard to tell on television sometimes. I mean, you gotta have a pretty big television to get a sense of.
The thing that makes it more difficult is, unless they're getting a feed that is not the feed that we're getting on TV, which I find hard to believe, okay, they could tell who's carrying the puck based on, okay, the defenseman passes it up the middle. They see the line change. They know what line's on there. They can assume, okay, passes up the middle. It's Jack Eichel or it's Dylan Cousins or whoever the center is. Okay, well, if you're watching it on a monitor, it's not giving you the full view of the ice like you would have at the arena. So you don't know, you don't see you may not see you see the defenseman out of the corner of the screen. You may not see the center getting the puck until it's on his stick. So it cuts off your ability to sort of anticipate who's getting the puck. Sometimes they make a mistake, they can't read a number, but that really cuts down on, what you're going to be getting is more of a TV play-by-play, even if it's on the radio. And on the radio, usually it's more descriptive, and I think that's going completely gone, if it's not because of simulcast, then because of where they're doing the broadcasts from. And that's bad. It's really sad. But
I agree.
Russ, I want to bring this up because I saw this on social media today, and it really, really irked me. I mean, I get that everybody, their own little bit of expression here, but a podcast called Blue Shirts Breakaway, which I'm probably giving them more credit than they deserve. They purchased a billboard on the thruway near, as they called it in their tweet, KeyBank Arena. Okay, Jamokes, it's KeyBank Center. So if you're going to purchase a billboard, I hope you got the name of the arena right. But essentially, it was a call for the Sabres to get off their rear ends and trade Jack Eichel. I mean, yeah. Go ahead. You take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I think these guys got this from like the Jets fan base, because the Jets fan base has been known to have flyovers, and you get that plane with the big banner and whatever they're annoyed at they do, or they buy a billboard. So it's not like it's never been done before. Of course, it's been done before. I just think they did want to get some notice, and it's not going to matter to the Rangers. It's not going to matter to the Sabres. It's not going to matter to the Eichel trade. Everybody talks about it. They could have some fun. These guys saved up for it. Good for them. But if Eichel gets traded to another team, you flushed your money down the toilet, and you could have done something else with it. And that's what's foolish about this.
And Kev, the thing is, I don't see any flexibility here. I think the Sabres have their heels dug in. Eichel's got his heels dug in. I don't know where this breaks loose.
Yeah. No, you're right. I know they feel like they've got to hit a home run with the return on this, and I think that's pretty much what's driving all this. And they feel like they have the leverage on it because they have him under contract, and if he doesn't show up, they don't even have to pay him. Unless and they can really make him get medical care, how they want to do it. I don't know why they would do that, but that's the way that they seem to want to play this.
Well, I get the interpretation that they want to make whoever they trade Eichel to make the decision on the medical situation, because by them saying you're not going to be allowed to do the disc replacement, that's holding everything in abeyance. He can't do anything without their say so. Right. So right now it's stuck, and he will not do the fusion surgery because he doesn't believe that's the right way to go. So right now it's loggerheads. They're stuck. Yeah.
And it's a bad situation because it's just going to be such a horrible season for Buffalo. We talk so much about Eichel that we tend to forget. I know the fans of Buffalo have forgotten that they got rid of Ristolainen and Reinhart as well. And they've got some good young players, but you're not replacing those three.
So in 6 weeks, do we think he's going to be skating at camp?
No.
I don't. They're going to have to do something before camp just to get rid of that story, right, Kev? Otherwise, it's going to be a horrible story when camp opens.
Well, I mean, there's not much they can do unless they let him get surgery, because he's going to say I'm injured still,
right?
And then they've got to pay him, and then he's going to feel he's got the leverage if they're paying him and he's not playing. So
I don't think he play. Okay, at this point, I don't think he plays another game as a Sabre, and he probably doesn't play until December because he'll have to recover from the surgery.
Well, yeah, but I don't think he'll get the surgery if he's not going to get the fusion surgery. So
right. Right. I'm saying he's going to have to get traded before he has the surgery, and then who knows how long it'll take for them to trade him. So then it could be 6 weeks to 2 months at least to recover from the surgery. So he could probably not even play until December, January. I mean, I don't know.
Kev, you know what? Honestly, if a trade wasn't made this week, I would basically just say as the GM of the Sabres, okay, you're on the IR, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna have to pay him, but they've got. Where are they at now in terms of the floor of the cap?
That's a good question.
Well, and then that's the thing that they will count Eichel's. See, this is why they won't. Right. They will count Eichel's contract against the cap. They won't put him on LTIR. They'll put him on IR because they're not nowhere.
Yeah, it'll be IR.
Yeah, they're right now. They are at $52 million, so they have $28 million in cap space. So they have to get. I think they have to get up to 60.
60, right? So Eichel will do that.
Right.
So they
no,
they'll just pay him and he won't play.
No, right. The 52 is with Eichel.
Oh boy.
That's why I was saying it's like I was expecting them to do a Koskinen deal or take on some bad contracts. They could trade.
Or they could just pay the penalty. From what I read,
they're not going to pay the penalty, Russ.
Hold on. But from what I read, the penalty is somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million bucks. At some point, could the Sabres just say, "Go ahead, Gary, just penalize us. Who cares?"
I don't think it's possible.
Why?
Well, okay.
Yeah, nobody's ever done it. So I don't know. I don't know what how that works. Be interesting to know.
I know, like, if a team is over the cap, they basically are not allowed to. They begin to forfeit games if they're over the cap. They can't. Right. They're not eligible to play. So they could end up trading for a draft pick or something, and not even trading anything at all to Anaheim for Ryan Kessler, and that's $7 million in cap space right there. You know what I'm saying? They could rent an IR player for a year. That's a possibility. One question in the chat before we end the show, Cameron.
I thought we were doing the Boston project.
Oh, let's do Boston first. Okay, yeah. The two players for the Bruins in our series.
The one thing I have to stress to the Bruins fan base, because you've been a very successful team, the lack of really high-end offensive talent is very apparent in your system. So the two guys that I'm picking are the ones that have a chance to have that high-end offensive talent, which means they're not playing in the NHL right now, but they could be soon, but they're not. And so number one is Fabian Lysell. Now, he is a guy who's tremendously fast, has a great shot, may have had the best shot in this past draft. People didn't love the way he left his team one time. There was a whole thing behind that. So there's a reason. That's part of the reason why he dropped a bit in the draft, because he didn't do great in interviews. There was a few things, but the talent is there, and he could be on the power play. The minute he gets the puck in the offensive zone, he's an instant threat, and this is the kind of player that the Bruins need. They don't really have young players like that anymore, and at some point when you reshuffle the deck, you're going to have those guys. So he is a good guy to keep an eye on, because, you're probably talking about 2 or 3 years away. He's going to get stronger and all those things. The Bruins tend to over-marinate. But his talent may actually get him there a little faster. The other one is Jakub Lauko. People may have forgotten about him, third rounder from 2018, but had a real good year in the Czech League, had a better year with Providence, 19 points in 23 games. He's got speed. He plays hard in the corners. He's a guy that you hit him, he gets up with the puck. He sometimes will score with that. He's got a decent shot. He's not like a tremendous offensive player, but he's got at least some speed and some grit and some more, probably a little bit more of a high-end base than even a Studnicka has or has shown so far. So I think Lauko may be that guy who gets there at 22 and 23, and then maybe at that point, you can really see something. Right now they still could slow down some of these guys' development, and he's a guy that you should keep an eye on.
Russ, do you think John Beecher, who was their first round pick, and it was their first round pick in 2019, do you think he's sort of going down the same road that Trent Frederick is going?
I think Beecher, and I do think and this is the thing. Look, when you're picking late, like the Bruins have been, they're picking guys they believe can play in the NHL. And I believe John Beecher will play in the NHL. Whether he's a third or fourth liner, he's probably a fourth liner, but he's strong. He has grit. He has a good shot. His speed is more like straight line speed, so he's still working on that. But, yeah, I do believe he'll play in the NHL. And I think those are the kinds of guys that now the Bruins are loaded with, and they've got to go for the higher end. And this year they did with Lysell. So that's, we'll see how
Russ, is Lysell going to the Western Hockey League? I think
I've heard that he could. It would be an interesting move to get him over here in North America and do that. I think that could go a long way to showing, because if he burns up the dub, then you're talking about a quicker ascension here.
Question from Cameron Young. Do you think that Zdeno Chara will find a place to play? I've heard Florida, Washington, and the Islanders.
Does he want to play?
Yes, that's the other question.
I thought he did at the end of last season, but, I'm surprised that we've kind of gone this late. But,
There's no news, Ken. There's zero news on Zdeno Chara. I've been looking for weeks and months.
I know.
And short of getting someone to knock on his door where he lives, there's no way of finding us out.
Right. But I would assume, he still played pretty well last season. So,
yeah,
I don't know why he wouldn't.
Let's just say this. He's not going to a team on a PTO. It's either he's getting a contract and he's getting some sort of promise of playing time, or he's going to say, forget this.
Yeah, and let's remind everyone, too, because I always have to go through this every year. PTOs are favors. If a guy signs a PTO with Vancouver, it doesn't mean Vancouver's interested in signing him. Mm-hmm. It means his agent might have some sort of relationship there or whatever. Guys just want to go somewhere so they can play, to work out. We've already had a bunch of people in Detroit talking about a few guys. They hear about PTO and his Eiserman interested. No, I mean, the teams like to have guys in camp as well. Every once in a while, there is one that they've talked to. But
RJ Umberger was a great one because he went with the Rangers. They didn't sign him. He signs with Philly. And he was a really good player. Like RJ Umberger had 20 goal seasons.
Yeah, but fans just tend to want to connect that player with that team that he's went on a PTO, and most of the time that isn't the case.
Yeah, the Mason Raymond signed a PTO with the Leafs, and the reason he did was because Dave Nonis was the GM in Vancouver and had, I think, drafted Mason Raymond in Vancouver, and he had a good camp, and the Leafs signed him, and he had a good year, and then he went on and got a contract someplace else. I mean, sometimes it works out. Sometimes it ends up like Henrik Telinder, who the Leafs brought in on a PTO. He got hurt and never played again. So it's really hit or miss. The Leafs brought in Josh Hosang. Do you think that Josh Hosang is going to play for the Leafs this year? No. At most, he's going to play for the Marlies on an AHL contract. I can't see him signing an NHL deal, but we'll see. All right. Good show, guys.
Can I answer one more question?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, Johnny Red was asking, why aren't the Rangers trading like one of their young defensive prospects for a center? Well, they're in deep with the Eichel thing, so I think that is a great distraction right now. And the fact that Zibanejad and Strome both have only 1 year left in their contract is another problem. I think this is a next year thing that will happen, but right now they're just short at the center position. And this is why I don't think they can get really far this year. Even with Eichel, they could make the playoffs if they get Eichel and he's healthy and he plays, sure. But getting far with him and Strome, it's only slightly better than what you have now. So you're only going to go slightly further. And then next year, there's no guarantee Strome's coming back, because if he has another really big year with Panarin, then, he's going to look for bigger money. So it all depends how that part of it works out too. But right now, I don't see it happening.
All right. Great show, guys. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Kevin Allen, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.